start at the Garden and an incredible finish. Knicks, Pistons. New York trying to finish off the Pistons. 3.5 minutes to go. Detroit is up by 3. Karl Anthony Towns. Bang, we're tied at 95. Ensuing Pistons possession. Allen, these are critical moments here. You're going to see a bucket for Detroit, and you're going to see both Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson injured.
Josh Hart with a hard fall trying to defend that play, and you see him go down real hard on that hip. But watch Jalen Brunson after that. He starts limping away from the play. It happened a little bit earlier as that right ankle that caused him to miss 15 games during the regular season tweaked once again in these playoffs.
And Monica, they would both leave the floor. Again, Jalen Brunson so critical to the Knicks offense. And when they leave, the situation with 2.5 minutes remaining is a 2-point game. But then it's Duran again, and the Pistons are up by 4. And then it's Cunningham, and it's 6, and they're still not in the game.
Oh, gosh, Greeny. The way that this game was going, it was a surprise to get these stretches without a whistle. And, of course, they happen now without Brunson and Hart on the floor.
It's a 6-point game. They take a quick shot. The Knicks take a quick. It's a good shot for Mikal Bridges, but it's a quick shot. And tick, 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 as Chris Berman would say. About 1.5 minutes of game time goes by with them standing at the scorer's table alone. They don't get back in until there's about 30 seconds to play. And then the Pistons find themselves another bucket here from Thompson. And to the overwhelming frustration of the Knicks stars and of their coach and of their fans, the Pistons live to fight another night. That night will be Thursday. 106-103 is the final. To summarize, Brunson and Hart were not in the game for a stretch of 2 minutes and 30 seconds late in the fourth quarter. When they departed, the Knicks were down 2. When they returned, it was a 6-point game on a 6-2 run. Here was Tom Thibodeau asked about it afterwards.
When you had Jalen and Josh there on the scores table waiting to check it, get in, what was the thought process of not calling a timeout or not getting them back in the game as that lead kind of went up?
Just where we were with our timeouts. Coach's decision.
So you think you want to be an NBA head coach. You got to make those decisions in real time, and that coach's decision, as Tibbs says, winds up in a circumstance where who could have imagined they would go that long without a stoppage in play. You need to get a timeout. He had one. You need to get a foul. They had one to give, and they get neither. Brian Windhorst, take us through that final sequence, the final 2.5 minutes at the Garden last night.
Yeah, so when you get inside 3 minutes in the NBA, you're only allowed to have 2 timeouts. That's what the Knicks had. He had to use one to stop the game because Josh Hart's laying on the court, okay? So he's got 1 left in a game he's behind. He's strategically thinking that he might need to advance the ball, and he might have been right. And so he makes a strategic decision. Now, look, you could do this 10 times over, and it could work out for you 6, 7 times. It didn't work out for him. The reason this feels so penal is because Jalen Brunson is such a difference-making player at the end of games. This is not a vacuum because he's such a difference maker. This series has basically been defined by Jalen Brunson winning the fourth quarter for the Knicks. This time it was Cade Cunningham's turn. He has 13 points in his first ever elimination game on the road. He is to be celebrated. But the thing is, Tibbs did have a foul to give. That's the one element in this that you can really attack him on. He could have given the foul without sending the Pistons to the line. He didn't have to use the timeout. There was a moment where it looked like Deuce McBride might have done that. Like he had been given a signal, but he didn't get it done. And therefore, you've got your ultimate closer, clutch player of the year, standing on the scorer's table as the Knicks go 3 very difficult to watch possessions without getting a basket.
Alan and Monica, you both worked the Knicks broadcasts all year, and I say that just to make sure the audience understands how close you are to the situation and that you were there in the building. Can you describe the feeling you had as you were watching it and broadcasting it, and the feeling in the building as this time is going by and those two guys are standing at the scorer's table?
Well, I actually want to rewind it a little bit, Greeny, because my terrific radio partner Tyler Murray and I work in action, and you see Jalen Brunson tweak his ankle first. He's out of the play. They're going down to play 4-on-5. Then you see Josh Hart go down. Now you're going 3-on-5, and you're like, something's got to happen. You got to get these guys off the floor because you're at a tremendous disadvantage. But you're like, it's only 2 timeouts. So you could feel the reticence in terms of trying to get those guys off the floor. So that timeout is a big deal. Then the tenor of this game, to be able to go up and down the floor 3 times and not get a whistle was a little unusual. So in the moment, you're like, I kind of get it, a whistle's going to come, but then you realize you're running out of time. And so you're right. You're like, you had to get those guys on the floor.
What was the crowd like?
Oh, the crowd was screaming foul. Yeah. They weren't even calling a timeout because I think, it's a very smart crowd that knows there's only one left. Like, you don't want to burn that timeout again. But it was the obvious thing to do was the Valley had to take foul before they were in the bonus. They did not do that either. And that was something I think that most people were saying. But there's 2 ways to look at this. And as I said earlier, one side of you says they left Mariano Rivera in the bullpen. That's one side of you says that by not getting Jalen Brunson back in the game. The other side says you traded for Mikal Bridges, gave up a lot for him. You traded for Karl-Anthony Towns, gave up a lot for him as well, so that Jalen Brunson wouldn't have to carry you all the time. And instead, as you showed in the graphic, this is a good look. This is a typical fadeaway Bridges shot he normally makes, and he was having a great third quarter. Here's another one. He's a corner 3 specialist. That's his best shot, and he misses that one as well. 1 for 5 they were in those minutes without Brunson on the floor, and he missed 2. Towns missed 1. Campaign missed 1 as well. Those are shots that you need to make. That's why you traded for these guys. So there's really 2 ways to look at these last few minutes.
As much as we are a part of the Knicks broadcast, I do want to point out that you got a monster game from Asar Thompson, who, frankly, I don't know if he's played more than 25 minutes because of foul trouble in this one. And you got Jalen Duren, who had 14 rebounds, Greeny. He had 2 incredible rebounds down that stretch. And so, in addition to that, and Cade Cunningham, the Pistons were better in the clutch.
Yes, they were.
Look, the reality is the Pistons could easily have won all 5 games of this series. No one's trying to take anything away from them. They're a really good team. Cade Cunningham's a terrific young player, and their coach has done an unbelievable job. But that does not feel to me like the story. I mean, the reality is when the two stars on the Knicks are standing there and the coach doesn't get them in the game, it's impossible not to talk about it the following morning. It's one thing. Mariano Rivera is great, and the reason you get a setup man is because you want to make sure you give it to Mariano to get there, and you don't ask those guys to do that. So look, here's the answer to the question: how much of this is on the coach? Is a lot of it is. Of course it is, and Tom Thibodeau is a great coach. I'm not sitting here screaming fire him. I'm not sitting here screaming he's a terrible coach. I'm not saying any of that. But what I'm saying is your job as the head coach is to make decisions in real time, and then you live with the results. It's a lot easier to sit here the following morning, like I get to do every single day, and judge the result. They have to make the decision ahead of time, and then you live with it. And the criticism is part of it. At the end of the day, Windy, I mean, Tibbs might not say this. I have no idea if it'll come up. If in an honest moment you said to him, if you had known it was going to go all the way to 27 seconds, he would say, of course I would have stopped it otherwise. I thought it would get stopped some other natural way, and it didn't. It got away from him, and that's the unfortunate reality. And now the Knicks play a tough Thursday night in Detroit. That becomes a huge game in this postseason win, man.
Yeah, so I thought Tibbs coached a very effective game here because he used his bench. Nobody on this team played more than 40 minutes, which we know is something he is inclined to do. He got production up and down his lineup. And strategically, you could argue that saving the timeout was a good decision. But because of the Jalen Brunson factor, that is what changes it all. The fact that they are such a different team in the clutch without Brunson, that is just a difference maker in this, and that's why you can't coach in a vacuum. And he made a coaching decision. It didn't work, and now the consequences are this. The Knicks have a lead. They are still ahead. They still have home court advantage. They now have got to bounce back from this.
Now, and immediately, Wendy, in the sequence of events, and I don't know if this is pro hold the timeout or if it's pro get Jalen Brunson back on the floor, but Jalen Brunson forces a near turnover with 5.4 to go. And you see why you wish you had a timeout, but in the same breath, there goes your clutch player doing what he has to do to help you win a game.
Put a cap on what you're saying, because it's absolutely right about coaches and their decisions. You live with them, but what are you doing? You're relying on your players. Same as J.J. Redick. You're relying on your players in that situation to make plays, and when they don't, it falls on you.
It's a hard freaking job, and then that's why these guys have so much stress and strain and all that kind of stuff. It is a hard job, and in that moment, it just got away from him and from the Knicks. The time just got away from them in a way. There's no way in the world that if you're given all the different options that were ahead of you, say, would you rather have a timeout the take foul, or leave those guys standing on the sideline. That would have been his third option of the three.
Of course, yeah. The game got away. What you don't want now is for the series to get away. That's the concern.
And this is not about not giving the Pistons all the credit in the world. They deserve all the credit in the world. They've played a terrific series, as I say. They could easily be up 5 games to none in this series if a few balls bounce the other way. Once again, run the floor through some of the action from last night. We opened with the Knicks and the Pistons, a thrilling win for Detroit last night, and the Knicks spent a lot of the final minutes of that game with 2 of their most important players on the side waiting to get in. So the first question we have, Alan Hahn, is it fair to blame the coach, Tom Thibodeau, for this loss for the Knicks?
I'm going to say no, it's not fair to blame the coach for the loss because there's a lot of reasons why they lost while we're watching Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, that's obviously the run. That's the Indiana game, which we just talked about a moment ago on your screen. This is the point, is the Knicks here last night.
Leaving them on the sideline, of course, is something that is maddening because in that moment you want the best closer in the game on the floor. But there were still 2 high-level players on the floor, Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges, who should have made buckets in an important time. They didn't. So I think there's a lot of shared blame here.
Here's the way I look at this. Let's stop down on this for a minute again here, guys. We'll get back to run the floor. But, Matt, bring it out and get Windy back in here and get Monica. And I said the same thing about J.J. Redick yesterday. Of course the coach is to blame, because that's your lot in life. You want to be an NBA head coach, you've got to make these decisions in real time.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
You've got to live with the consequences. There's nothing in the world easier than coming in here the following morning and sitting here with the benefit of having seen how it worked out and saying, oh, you got that wrong. As it turned out, there's no question. If he knew how it was going to go, he would have done it differently. So do you say that you blame the coach? Yes, because that's the coach's job, is to make these decisions without knowing the results ahead of time. So I know it sounds critical or nasty or whatever it is to say, yeah, the coach gets blamed for the loss. That's the reality. When you're the coach, you make the decision, you live with the consequences. He would have done it differently if he had known how it was going to turn out. Is that fair?
I think that's 100% fair. And look, Tom Thibodeau, you can say what you want about the minutes, about how he plays guys, but one thing that is never said of Tom Thibodeau is that he is ill-prepared.
He's a great coach.
100%, right? And so to have this moment, I hate to use a cliche, but sometimes that's how the ball bounces. Right. If you have been following the series, the likelihood that you go up and down the floor 4 times and not get a whistle, you don't see that often in this series. And then if you need any more solace, when Jalen Brunson nearly forces that steal, you see right then and there why he was holding on to that timeout so preciously, because it put the Knicks in a bad spot. It is unfortunate the way that the game bounced. I like what Hahn said in terms of you can divvy out blame, but again, Mikal Bridges got a great look. Karl-Anthony Towns, to me, reverted to a little bit of allowing Tobias Harris to put too much pressure on him, because, frankly, he could have gotten deeper into the paint and got another good look in that same time frame while those guys were out.
Windman, final word from you on this for the moment.
Yes, you can second guess any coach in this type of situation. The thing is, Jalen Brunson is such a killer in these exact moments, these 3 possessions. You have to figure he gets at least 1 score, maybe 2, maybe generates. And that's why it's so high leverage, because the reason the Knicks are even in this spot ahead 3-1 is because Brunson gets it done in these spots. That's why it hurts so much. That's why the Knicks fans were crawling out of their skin on the sidelines last night.
Yes, I did an essay yesterday here on the show about how Brunson is the most clutch player in the NBA. It had 500,000 views on Twitter yesterday alone. Somehow Tom Thibodeau missed it because he didn't.
God, Greeny.
That was Hembo's line. I'm kidding. Coach, be mad at Hembo. Don't be mad at me. All right, next stop is L.A. Lakers down 3-1. Speaking of coaches who made decisions that wind up not working out the way they wanted, they will be looking to stave off elimination tonight against Minnesota. By now you know, Game 4, second half, J.J. Redick becomes the first coach ever to play the same 5 players for an entire half of a playoff game, at least as back as far as 1998, because that's how far back we can track these things. Yesterday he was asked if he regretted the decision.
No, and you know what? Looking back now, I mean, what have we scored? 19, 20, 13 in the 4th quarter. You know, it's a trend, more so than that. I mean, we missed, our 2 best players missed layups at the rim. You know, it's, I don't think they missed layups because they were tired.
All right, Joe Fortenbaugh, our gambling expert, jumps into the conversation as well. But Windy, I start with you. What was your reaction to what we just heard from J.J. Redick?
Well, he certainly knows his team better than anybody. I don't quite follow the logic because he's talking about how he didn't think fatigue was a factor, but then he's complaining or pointing out, I should say, that his team is not getting it done in the fourth quarter. I just think those are related. You look at this series, the Lakers have been outscored by 36 points in the fourth quarters of these 4 games. Specifically in games 3 and 4, they got outscored by 10 in game 3 and 13 in game 4. To me, that's the difference, and I just think fatigue played a role. He clearly does not trust his bench. He clearly does not trust his starting center. That's not his problem necessarily, but I don't think he can run this back and assume that that it's going to change. He needs to figure out a way to have Luka and LeBron get at least a little bit of a blow because what they're doing is not working in these fourth quarters.
I agree with Windy. If you listen to what JJ was saying, he basically was saying, look, fatigue was not a factor. Our guys were just tired, okay? I mean, if you look at the end of the game, they're missing layups, they're missing shots they never normally would. We haven't done anything in the fourth quarters of these games. Our guys are tired, but fatigue is not a factor.
I'm not buying it.
He can't say, he's not giving his team an excuse. Why are you not buying it?
I'm not buying it because LeBron James looked incredible defensively in that game in the fourth quarter. He made unbelievable plays, chase down, block, steals. He was all over the place defensively. I know Windy said the other day he was resting on offense. He only took 2 shots and one was a bad 3. But they were getting after it. When can we just say that the Timberwolves are a really good defensive team that have length defenders that know how to defend? They got away with a trip that should have been called. It wasn't. They had a look to tie it that they missed. There was an opportunity for the Lakers to win this game. And they didn't because the Timberwolves made big plays and they are a really good defensive team that matches up well against them. We cannot just keep saying it's fatigue when LeBron James is 40. You can't say that on one side and on the other side say it's amazing what he's doing at 40. Look at him playing defense. I'm sorry. I'm not buying it. I'm not using fatigue as an excuse. I am crediting the Timberwolves for making great stops and shutting that game down and the Lakers not getting a call they should have gotten.
I love you like a brother, but I couldn't disagree more.
Listen, you got your spot in the next Anthony Edwards commercial very clearly because I agree with that case. Now, this is what I will say. We all had a chance to get to know.
You agree with him or with me?
Hold on.
You could say it's okay. You could say you side with me. It's all right, Monica.
I do think that the Wolves are not getting enough credit. But what I will say is we all had a chance to get to know J.J. Redick, and he is a high performer at all levels. And so I think what you're hearing in that sound, whether you want to go to the actual choice of not using the word fatigue or tired or not, you are hearing the level of expectation that he has for his team. He lasered in on 2 layups, and he's right. Luka Doncic and LeBron James, I don't care what time in the game it is, y'all are supposed to make layups. And so I think for him, he has such incredible expectations. Remember, he had a great relationship with LeBron prior to becoming his head coach. Luka supposedly asked Luka when he joined the team, can I coach you hard? Luka supposedly said yes. And so for him, you are seeing the level of expectation that he has for those guys, and he's not willing to make an excuse.
I understand what you're saying. That's what I think he's doing. He's not giving his players an excuse at the end for the next game if they're tired to say, well, it's okay because you are fatigued. But the idea that LeBron James does not take a shot in the entire fourth quarter the other day and that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay, or whatever. Did not score a point. Sorry, did not score a point in the fourth quarter of that game the other day when he has been playing great, when he was asked to carry them almost by himself on Friday night and then turn around 36 hours later and play the entire second half. The idea that fatigue isn't a factor in a one-possession game.
Fatigue's a factor in every game. Of course it is. But it's all about makes and misses in this sport, and they were missing shots. And as we just showed there, how about DiVincenzo's defense? A couple of steals he made, just reading, seeing what they were doing. They know each other and what they're going to run very well. And in that particular point of the game, he and Naz Reid came off the bench and made phenomenal defensive plays and had impact plays. And you have to also sometimes just credit the other team. Sometimes it's not
shots.
They got tired.
Big shots.
Oh, he had 2 shots. Plus, really, if LeBron James decides he's going to go score, he's not going to do it? Or not attempt it?
That's what I'm saying.
Come on, y'all.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's the point. But he didn't.
You know, Greedy, he's not.
And by the way, national games have longer timeouts and longer commercial breaks, and there's plenty of time to catch your breath in a fourth quarter.
Let me get Fortenbaugh in here. What do you think of all this?
I would say that if they were that fatigued, you'd see it in the shooting, and they're shooting over 40% from deep over the last 2 games. So there might be some of it in the defensive side of the equation, but if you're looking at tonight's game, Minnesota's a sizable underdog here, 5.5. Now, the money's coming in on the Lakers for good reason. We'll get to that in a minute. I would look to Minnesota to cover this number. 1, because of the shooting. I don't know what more the Lakers can do. Over 40% from 3 the last 2 games. They outshot Minnesota from both the field and 3-point range. You should win those games, and yet they didn't. The only Timberwolves loss in this series was an abomination of a shooting performance that ranked 85th of 86 games played by Minnesota this season. But the thing is, and I got to bring this up. I know it's not popular for TV, but here for Sports Betting Insights. The money on the Lakers, a big reason why, the whistle tonight. They're down 3-1. They're at home. We saw the free throw discrepancy in the last game. I know it's not a popular TV topic, but when you're betting this stuff, when you're betting this stuff, that is factored in tonight for sure.
How is that not a popular TV
It is
topic?
popular.
I made a living talking about that for 30 years. What are you talking about? Okay.
NBA